I've been investing in the country of Georgia for years now, both just depositing money in the bank, but also buying a lot of different properties and a lot of different types of properties. And it's really great. Every time I come to Tbilisi, someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, Andrew, I'm here investing because I heard about this place from you." But the reality is it wasn't always easy, and I've made mistakes along the way. I'm going to share a few of the most critical mistakes I've made about investing in Georgia right now. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. Let's get right into it, investing in the country of Georgia. One of the things that I've really felt, especially in Eastern Europe, Western Asia, a lot of emerging economies, is I like to invest in the capital city. So when people come to me and say, what about Batumi? What about something in the wine region? Unless you're running an active business, I would probably tend to stick to the capital city. People in emerging economies generally want to move to the capital city. It's where there's the most demand. If it's the seat of government, there's going to be that kind of basic demand. If you look even at more developed economies like the United States, in Ohio, where I grew up, Columbus, Ohio, the state capital, has a certain amount of resilience that other cities don't have because it has that government behind it. So lots of reasons to invest in the capital. And with the exception of some agricultural land that I bought along the way, all of my investing pretty much has been in the capital, other than some minor deals. One of the big mistakes that I made that seems rather basic is I didn't get started earlier, and I didn't go big earlier. Now I understand the importance of dipping your toe in. You want to learn how things work. I didn't have anybody to guide me because I was the only guy coming who spoke English. I had to really work with kind of substandard conditions when I first came here in 2014 and started doing deals. And so I didn't want to dive full in. However, some of my first deals were, I paid $22,000 for a 43 square meter apartment, maybe 200 or 300 meters up the hill in the middle of the city center. And I renovated it, and we did a really beautiful job, really made it a great place. There aren't really any more of those deals anymore. $500 a square meter. I remember actually passing on deals that were like $650, $700 a square meter just 2.5 years ago, because I was arguing with folks over, $1,000, and those properties would have been worth a lot more today. I've seen prices steadily rise. I've seen those deals really go by the wayside. So what I would recommend is if I'm starting investing in property and I have the money as I did, I would try and find someone who has experience, and I would try and dive in a little bit faster because, in these markets where properties are under $1,000 a meter, deals tend not to last for long. The second mistake that I made was really not putting in place the right team right away. In Georgia, they call a real estate agent a makler, okay? And what's funny is I recently found really the second good makler in the entire country. There are hundreds of maklers. A lot of them do it as a part-time thing. Very few of them are really that good at it. And if you're from the Western world, you're going to see a huge drop. I mean, it's a vastly different experience than what you'd find in the West, where you have professional real estate agents. You can call them at any time of the day or night. It's just a different experience here. They show up late. They're not dressed professionally. And that's changing. Again, I found two. I mean, in all these years, I found two that I really like. What I found initially that turned me off to the market was I found the expat real estate agent. This is the person who deals with locals who finished up their apartments and they want to rent them to wealthy expats, people who work for embassies, that kind of thing. And as a result, all the stuff that she showed me was what I felt was overpriced. And I would still say it was overpriced. So I dealt with her. She spoke good English, but she was kind of like the English language website, in a lot of these emerging economies where the prices are 30 or 40% higher just because the website's in English. That was her, and initially I said, this is not a good place to invest, and so I didn't want to work with her. The rest of the people just weren't very good quality, and so I think that the mistake maybe not be able to be avoided. If you just come in on your own, you might have the same problem, because in a lot of these economies, they're not developed. You don't have the MLS in most cases. And so you're going to be dealing with people who just aren't as experienced. You're not going to have a real estate agent who has the experience. You're not going to deal with people who really know the numbers. You're going to have to know that information yourself. So one of the things that I can recommend is get a lawyer, get an accountant, get someone who's a professional who can come in and be your guide. If you're not working with someone like Nomad Capitalist who's shepherding you through the process, have someone who's local, who's on the ground, who's in your corner. One of the things that we do when we go in R&D, a new market, is we'll hire someone and pay them to help us navigate that market. What are the local customs? What are the local traditions? How do things work? One thing I didn't learn until I bought properties, remember the first property I bought, they're like, when do you want us to leave? I'm like, well, I just gave you money, so why don't you just leave now? And they're like, no, 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 no. And I learned then that the local tradition is you got to give people 30 days cash because, again, there's not a whole escrow process in Georgia. It doesn't have the level of development you'd find in the United States. You literally go to the closing table, here's your cash or here's your proof of wire. They sign, you register it, it becomes your property very quickly. But, you know, they're saying, well, hey, we didn't know if you were going to pay or not, so now we need 30 days to get out because, you know, we weren't just going to leave and then you didn't close. So those are the things that I'll often pay people to learn to understand when I'm going into a new market. That's how we've developed a whole file of intelligence on investing all around the world. I don't often start with a real estate agent. I start with someone that I'm paying, so therefore they have my best interest in mind. And I'm not going to start with someone who's just looking to make a commission. Mistake number 3 that I made, which was actually a big one, and it speaks to those local traditions, was not understanding the local culture of neighbors. One thing that you see in Georgia is, by law, neighbors have a lot of power over, let's say you want to move your front door in your apartment, and you need to get the neighbors to sign off. Well, in some cases, you'll see people who've lived together for 40 years, no problem. In other cases, if you're the new guy, some of these neighbors, especially in the central locations, who may be living in older buildings, older people who lived through the Soviet era, oh, here's a guy with money, right? I remember one time I was doing a deal and we had a problem with a neighbor, and my developer, my renovation guy, said, "Do you want to go talk to her?" I said, like, she's on a pension, right? I'm like, he's like, yeah. I said, like, my scarf costs more than her. Like, no, I'm not talking to her. She'll hate me. Like, she'll hate you too, but she'll hate me even more. And so, it's like, you've got to know that going in. So one thing that I ask now is, hey, what's the deal with the neighbors, right? What is, are they agreeable? If there's something that, like, you need to register an extra room that was built and it's not registered and you're able to register it legally, but you need the neighbors to sign off, make the seller do that. Don't, oh yeah, it can be done. Yeah, they don't want to talk to the neighbors. And so that's how it works, okay? This is kind of libertarianism in action to a certain extent, where, the government's not enforcing everything, but they're leaving it to the local communities. They're leaving it to the people who live in your building, live in your yard. But sometimes if you're going in as the new guy in a place where other people have been living for a long time, that's a problem. Buying in a new building generally alleviates that issue. Not as many new buildings in great city center locations. Okay. Mistake number 4 that I made was when I sold that first property that I bought for $22,000. I put a lot of money into renovating it, did a great job. It was really easy, actually. We were able to knock out a brick wall, put in a beautiful window, bring more light in, change the bathroom. I mean, we did a ton of stuff, and the municipality was very easy to deal with. Didn't take very long at all, quite frankly, to get approval for all those things. The challenge that I got into with that property was when I sold it for $45,000, I think. And what I didn't realize is, if you have property in a company, which I did, because at the time I was a U.S. citizen, and I wanted to use the money in my active business company to move it into a subsidiary, was investing through that company. Oh, if you trigger the VAT threshold, which is 100,000 lari, now you've got to pay VAT in all your sales. And I thought, like, it's impossible that selling like a piece of real estate would be, that's not like selling a bag of chips. It's real estate, it's different. Maybe it's VAT on the profit. No. I went to, like, not only my accountant, but I hired like 3 other accountants just to make sure. And they said, yeah, you got to pay VAT in the whole amount. And so I actually lost like $6,000 in change in profit because I had to go back and pay VAT on that sale. And actually at the time when the lari was a bit stronger, I was actually very close. So I just barely triggered the VAT threshold, which was a pretty basic filing. The VAT itself wasn't an issue, but it ate into my profits. And so that's why you see fixing and flipping isn't as big of a thing here as it might be in, say, the United States, where you just have very low costs in terms of buying and selling the properties. That also means that you want to look at how you structure your properties when you buy them here, because there's not only different tax considerations on an income level, but also VAT and capital gains. So structuring properties is important, and I really learned the value of that. The last thing that I learned is you really want to focus on who you're renting to and what your goal is. Now, some people come and do Airbnb deals, and they've been very successful working with us in having us connect them with the right people to do that. Personally, for me, I've become more interested in long-term rentals recently. And so, we have an agent who does that. But what I've really realized is I want to focus on higher end rentals if that's what I'm doing. Because what I don't want to do is get into those little tiny properties and be collecting rent that people, local tenants, want to put underneath a rock. I bought a property down the street from here in a great part of town, right near the new Fabrica complex, amazing area, paid next to nothing for it. And it actually came with tenants built in. I was making like 16% yield for a while. But the challenge, why I eventually just gave up and sold the property, not only did it not fit into my portfolio anymore, it was an experiment and I never planned to hold it forever, but what the tenants wanted to do, they're low rent tenants. They paid a low price, the yield was high, but the rent was still very low. They were not doing online banking. They said, hey, swing by on the 1st or thereabouts, maybe it's the 6th, maybe I was in my village and it's the 8th, and who knows, we'll just kind of work it out. And and I'm like, listen, I'm not swinging by and collecting money from underneath a rock, under any circumstances. So you really want to make sure that you're going into it understanding who the tenant's going to be, how you're going to get paid, how the money's going to get deposited to you. And if you want it to be more passive, then you need to make sure that you're dealing with the right kind of people. So those are 5 things that I've run into. Definitely would love to hear your comments below. What are some of the things that you would want to know if you were investing in Georgia?
Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6 or 7 figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.